everyone, my name is Olivia. I'm a registered dietitian with Flik Hospitality Group, and today we are making roasted tomato hummus. So I'm going to walk you through the ingredients and then we are actually going to make the hummus and show you what it should look like as your end result. So let's get started. First and main ingredient, of course, they're going to be your chickpeas or your garbanzo beans. Garbanzo beans are a great source of protein, fiber, and they are a very, very cost-effective protein source. So, and compared to like an animal protein like chicken breast or steak, chickpeas provide lots of plant protein, but they are very, very inexpensive. A can of chickpeas is probably, less than $1, which is great. Great thing to add to your diet. You could also use any other type of bean, really. You could use a white bean if you wanted to instead of this. It just wouldn't be a traditional hummus, but that's totally fine. It has about the same nutrition profile. So to get started with the beans, I actually used dried beans. I used about 10 ounces, which is almost a full can of beans. And I actually put them on the stove. So I let them boil in a pot. And then I let them soak overnight so that they would get really soft. And then after that, the next morning, I drained them, and now I'm using them in this hummus recipe. The easy way out is to buy canned beans. So you could absolutely do canned chickpeas. You want to do the low sodium version or the no salt added if you can. You just want to rinse and drain those. By rinsing with water, you can actually reduce the sodium content even further, which is great. I also have some cracked black pepper on here already and some kosher salt, as well as 3 tablespoons of olive oil, just to kind of have it all in one container. Olive oil is going to be what we use in this recipe primarily to help blend it and give it a nice texture. And these are our roasted tomatoes. So you can use jarred tomatoes or you can use fresh tomatoes. I chose to buy a pint of cherry tomatoes and actually roast them in the oven. So super simple, just wash and dry your cherry tomatoes, throw them on a sheet tray, toss with some olive oil. You put it in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes at 375 degrees, and then you'll get these beautiful roasted tomatoes. They'll kind of burst a little bit, and that's when you know that they are done. But again, you could also use jarred tomatoes in this case. So we're using about 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup. You can kind of add a little bit more or less depending on what you prefer. So that's just a little note, and this is kind of what the roasted tomatoes homemade look like. We also are going to be using some dried basil. I actually didn't have fresh basil, so the recipe calls for a tablespoon of fresh basil. You want to use about a teaspoon of the dried basil. Dried herbs tend to pack a little bit more flavor in smaller amounts, so just bring it down a little bit if you're using dried herbs. So a teaspoon of the dried basil, about a tablespoon of the fresh. In my opinion, you can't use enough basil, so feel free to add plenty more if you like. We're also using about 4 teaspoons of tahini or sesame paste. Great source of heart-healthy fat to have in our hummus recipe, and it's a very traditional ingredient. We're also going to be using fresh garlic. So I have 4 garlic cloves here peeled. You don't really have to chop them because they're going into the food processor, which is great. Garlic adds a ton of flavor. This recipe calls for about 1.5 cloves, but I say the more the better, so feel free to add more garlic if you'd like. The last ingredient is going to be our lemon juice. So lemon juice, you can use fresh, you can use jarred lemon juice, whatever you have on hand. You're going to get about 3 tablespoons of juice from a small lemon, so that can give you a good gauge there. I like to use this tool to make sure that none of the seeds get into the juice, which is awesome. So really easy. We're going to actually just throw this all into a food processor or a high-speed blender, whatever one you have. So let's do that. 10 ounces of chickpeas, 3 tablespoons of olive oil, cracked black pepper, and then some kosher salt. And some of these roasted tomatoes are going in. I'm gonna use about 1/2 cup. And then our tahini sesame paste really makes this a traditional hummus. Garlic cloves, again, just using them whole. About a teaspoon of basil. Could use more or less to your preferences. And then our lemon juice. And we're just gonna pop the lid on. And now we're going to blend. All right, so this is our final product. It is our roasted tomato hummus. I hope you all enjoy it and are able to make it at home. Look forward to cooking with you again soon.